Hey everyone, Gig Coach Jake here, and I'm back with another hot topic. I know I'm late to the party, and a lot of people have already been talking about this, but I have my own spin. DoorDash. Now they're being sued again? Yes, but will they lose? Now I'm going to shed some light on that topic and why I don't think they're going to win this lawsuit. Now in 2017, they had another lawsuit that they technically didn't lose, but they settled. There's a lot of Dashers just now being paid out on that settlement as of now. But that forced them to change a lot of things in their agreement and the way that they operate. The only way that they're going to lose this case is if the plaintiffs can prove that they are actually employees and not independent contractors. Good luck on that one. If it was Grubhub, it'd be a different story. They would definitely be able to prove that Grubhub treats their workers as employees and not independent workers. So, anyhow, I just want to share some stuff right here. Now, here's an article that explains exactly what the lawsuit is, and then I have one more article right after that's going to shed some light on why they're going to lose this lawsuit. Here's an article from PR Newswire, and the news was actually provided by the law firm themselves, titled, Henniger Garrison Davis LLC files class action against DoorDash for unlawful taking of drivers' tips. This was just done February 11th, and again, the news provided by Henniger Garrison Davis LLC. Let me read. Attorneys from Henniger Garrison Davis LLC's class action group have filed a class action complaint against DoorDash Incorporated, the defendant, for breach of contract and unlawfully taking tips that were intended for the delivery drivers. DoorDash is a national food delivery service, and the case arises from their improper conversion of tips directed and intended for drivers. Now, I'm not sure where the breach of agreement or contract comes in, because it's pretty clear in the contract that they pay as low as $1 and that they will guarantee a certain minimum. So I'm not sure here where that is. But anyhow, reading on. DoorDash is an on-demand food delivery service which delivers meals from national restaurant chains and local restaurants, as well as groceries from places like Walmart. When a customer places an order with DoorDash, a customer has the ability to leave an additional gratuity or tip for the DoorDash delivery drivers, called Dashers. The default Dasher tip is currently set to 10% of the order, but the customer may also leave a custom tip. In terms of compensation to its drivers, DoorDash promises each driver guaranteed base pay for each delivery job. And this varies in every market, plus 100% of the gratuity. However, DoorDash does not remit the full amount of gratuity that a consumer leaves for a Dasher. Instead of paying this tip to the Dasher, DoorDash actually uses the gratuity to cover its costs for the guaranteed base pay promised to Dashers. For example, if DoorDash promised the Dashers $5 base pay for the delivery and the customer tips the Dasher in an amount of $2, the Dasher still only gets $5. Well, I don't see it as a breach of contract, because DoorDash knows how much the tip is before they send us the contract, which is the guaranteed amount for whatever it may be. Reading on. On its website and other marketing materials, DoorDash deceptively advertises and represents that a gratuity can be added for delivery and that the driver would receive 100% of tips from the customer. DoorDash does not disclose that it keeps a substantial portion of this additional charge for itself as its own additional revenue to offset the guaranteed base pay promised to Dashers. This deceptive compensation scheme is illegal and violates federal and state law. I don't know, I'm still unclear which laws it's violating, but there's a lot of deceptive practices out there. In fact, Uber, the king of gig deceptive practices, has this crazy surge scam going on right now, right? So those that are drivers rideshare know all about it. Anyhow, if they're not getting busted for what they're doing, then I don't see how this is illegal whatsoever. Let me be clear. I'm not okay with the way DoorDash pays and the pay model. Not cool with that at all. I'm just here sharing the facts and the news. So let me read on here. On its website, okay, HGD attorneys Jim McDonough and Lou Garrison bring the action on behalf of the Dasher plaintiffs against DoorDash Corp. For breach of contract, negligent misrepresentation, fraudulent inducement, conversion, unjust enrichment, and violations of consumer protection laws. The lawsuit seeks the return of tips rightfully earned by Dashers in order to remedy DoorDash's improper withholding of those tips, which resulted in Dashers not receiving 100% of the tips that were intended for them. Man, I would love that. Trust me. I hope they lose this lawsuit. I don't think they will. I'm not always right. Again, I hope I'm wrong. I'll get some kickback because a lot of my deliveries, I got paid $1. So guess who's going to have an extra $4 per delivery coming? This guy. Anyhow, the law firm is a national law firm and attorneys defend valuable rights for our clients. To determine if you should file suit, consult one of our qualified lawyers as soon as possible to understand your options. This lawsuit is in Atlanta, Georgia. This doesn't mean that if you're in any state, anywhere, that you can just jump on board with this class action lawsuit. Every state is different. So make sure you do some homework and research before you go calling up this lawsuit saying, I want to jump on board. Let's take a look at another article that might shed some light to why they will not be sued. So this one is from Fortune and on yahoo.com, titled, Why Amazon, DoorDash, and Instacart Can Use Tips to Help Pay Their Drivers in California. So again, state by state, it's very different. I know here in Arizona, we're a right to work state. We're pretty much screwed. So, I don't know. Contact. A lot of lawyers do free consults, so you can contact them. It has to be a workers' rights lawyer or something like that. Let me read on here. So on-demand delivery companies like Instacart, DoorDash, and Amazon Flex have recently been blasted for how they handle tips that customers earmark for drivers who deliver orders to their doorsteps. In some cases, the companies use the tips to cover some of the minimum payment for the drivers, prompting accusation that the companies were stealing the tips. In an indirect way, they are. Unfortunately, Instacart did not have this in their agreement. DoorDash does. Despite the criticism, it turns out that the companies have done nothing wrong, at least by California law. This practice would be considered wage theft at a company with part-time and full-time employees, said Paula Laverty, spokeswoman for California's Labor Commissioner's Office. But because the drivers at the on-demand companies are contractors, they aren't covered by the same protections. Unfortunately, as independent contractors, we don't have a lot of rights and protections. At some point we will, though. In effect, they're only entitled to whatever pay is spelled out in their contract. In many cases, that means being paid a set amount per job and nothing more, and that may mean no tips. So, for example, them guaranteeing is almost like a nice thing they're doing for us. They don't have to guarantee any amount. What they do guarantee is $1, and it's clear, plain as day in the contract. I'm going to show that real quick at the end of this reading here. So, I don't see how they're in the wrong. It's unethical, yes. Illegal, no. But that doesn't stop the drivers from complaining. They say they're being cheated by deceptive pay policies that robs them of their tips. 100% absolutely right, and they deserve every right to go on there and gripe and complain. Under fire, Instacart changed its policy for how tips are factored into pay. It previously set a minimum payment for each job at $10, but included tips to meet that mark. So if a customer offered a $5 tip, the company only had to pay $5 to meet the minimum. In the end, the worker would get $10 for the job rather than $15. So this is a case of monkey see, monkey do. They saw DoorDash getting away with this since 2017. We're like, hey, what can we do to turn a profit? What if we change our pay model to something similar to what DoorDash has? They unfortunately did not have the writing in their agreement. And there's also some of their agreement about transparency. This pay model is anything but transparent. So they got their hand slapped, hand in the cookie jar, lawsuit slapped on them. They're going to lose. They're going to be paying out a big settlement or a lawsuit. Mark my words on that. DoorDash, I don't think so. I hope so, but I don't think so. Reading on. Under the new policy announced last week, Instacart will no longer factor tips into minimum payments. Instead, the company will pay workers a minimum of $7 to $10 for deliveries that require them to pick items at stores, pack them, and deliver them. Sounds fair. Workers who only deliver will now get a minimum of $5. Any tips would be added in their entirety on top of those minimums when the policy goes into effect, I believe I should say, on February 19th. While our intention was to increase the guaranteed payment for small orders, we understand that the inclusion of tips as a part of this guarantee was misguided. Instacart's founder and CEO said in the announcement, "We apologize for taking this approach." Yeah, you're sorry because you got caught and you're in trouble for it. Let's be real. DoorDash and Amazon reportedly have not backed down from their practices. No, why would they? They're not breaking any laws. So why would they back down from their practices? And trust that these companies have deep, deep lawyers consulting them on what they can and can't get away with. Yes, they do lose and they do make some foul ups, but those are some instances where they're pushing the limits, right? Anyhow, Amazon Flex guarantees its contract drivers a minimum of 18 to 25 per hour. But a recent LA Times report showed that Amazon sometimes factors in tips to meet the mark, thereby reducing what it pays out its own pocket. And I shared that article and all that in a different video. Our pay commitment to delivery partners has not changed since we launched the Amazon Flex program, Amazon said in a statement. Delivery partners still earn 18 to 25 per hour, including 100% of tips, skirting the fact that tips can sometimes vanish into drivers' base pay. Well, if they're adding money, subsidizing your pay when it's slow and they're not getting tips, that kind of makes sense, right? You're guaranteed an hourly minimum there. That's a tough one, but that's pretty good. I don't have nothing to say. I mean, to make 18 to 25 an hour guaranteed is pretty decent. Granted, it's before expenses, but hopefully somewhere down the road that changes. Anyhow, let's take a look at how the DoorDash pay model looks. I don't know how any more clear in the agreement it has to get than this. I mean, word for word. Now, DoorDash paid out a settlement before. They were sued one other time. They technically didn't lose because they settled, but it forced them to change a lot of things in their contract, and they covered their behind. Trust that. So look, let's just read and look at this real quick. For each delivery, you will always receive at least $1 from DoorDash plus 100% of the customer tip. Now, I know that in every instance, I've received at least $1 and 100% of the tip. So I have. Otherwise, I would have filed a lawsuit a long time ago, right? Like, you kidding me? But anyhow, so reading on. Where that sum is less than a guaranteed amount, DoorDash will provide a pay boost to make sure you receive the guaranteed amount. Where that sum is more than a guaranteed amount, you pocket the extra. So, same with Amazon. They're subsidizing, right? So, say that nobody tips. And those that are Grubhub drivers, we know there's a lot of no-tip offers that happen out there. They're making sure that you're going to make a minimum of $5 per delivery. So, they're helping have a base, right? There's a safety net. You're not going to make any lower than that if you're in an area that ends up, or if you have a day where it's a lot of non-tippers, right? So it's a lot of chance. They're covered because they do pay out up to $5, and I'm sure they could show thousands and hundreds of thousands of deliveries where they paid the drivers more than the $1 because there was no tip. So, mark my words, this is going to lose in court just like Lawson versus Grubhub did. I hope I'm wrong. Now again, like I said while I was reading this stuff off, I hope I'm wrong. And I hope they do lose this lawsuit. I don't think they will, and I showed why. But again, I hope I'm wrong on this. I hope they do lose. It will force them to change their pay model, even if it's just a settlement like before. So, not a bad thing with this lawsuit happening. I was wrong on them being sued, but I should have said I don't think they will be successfully sued. Anyone could sue anyone, right? I think the plaintiffs are going to lose a lot of money. Lawyers are going to clean up. Lawyers are the ones going to win in this situation. It's going to bring more attention to what's going on. But again, I hope they lose. I'm against what they're doing as far as their pay model, but I'm just sharing the facts and what I really think is going to happen. Anyhow, thanks for checking me out, watching my video all the way to the end. Stay tuned for more good stuff coming. Have a great day, night. Be safe on the road. And as always, like I say, work hard, but work smarter.